I'm Sabrina and I'm from Brisbane, and maybe just to understand where I come from and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I was born in 1992, first climate summit in Rio de Janeiro, and since nothing really changed. So I think maybe my generation onward, we grow up with this problem. So the only solution we have now is about talking about systemic change and not more an environmental or social solution separately. So I will present, well, what we do, but before, really briefly, it has been touched on what's the problem. I think capitalism and economic growth, this dogma that we have, capitalism as the dogma of creating capital to invest, to create more capital. What for, I would say, what's the actual purpose of that mechanism? And then really briefly again, how we're measuring our economy, how we're measuring the success of our nation is still based on GDP. Just monetary transaction, a lot of things are out. I always say, if your economy, if your country is not growing fast enough, you can have a car accident, you can get sick, you can send your kids to war, all of these things are gonna boom your economy. So obviously, this framework is creating a lot of social and environmental crises. And I think the important thing that we need to understand, that obviously here you do, but not everyone outside, is that these crises are interlinked and they are due to our economic system. We live in an economy that doesn't produce things that we need. They produce things that needs to be sold. And that's where, the consumerist culture is really like, full on everywhere out of this building. But it's really important to highlight that. I might just take this out. Can I move this away? There. It's important to understand that our needs are socially constructed. In the university, you go in the economic courses and they teach you that we are rational being doing rational choices. You go in a marketing course and they tell you all the opposite. So we basically can understand that we are we are rational and irrational at the same time, and obviously capitalism is using that to perpetrate that economic growth. Raj Patel says the perpetual quest of economic growth has turned humankind into an agent of extinction. And this is nothing new. This is nothing I say. It has been already proved with models, studies, etc. since the 70s. Even mainstream economy thinks that we need to rethink macroscopically our economy, and we are still not doing it. We are still just talking about small social issues or environmental issues separately. Just data of the Bureau of Statistics. In 1997-2012, waste generation increased by 145%. I hear a lot of people saying, yeah, but population, urbanization and stuff. No, population increased in Australia just by 22%. So the line that we don't see in there, that's consumption. That's consumption in all its form, culturally, not culture. How practically, how are we achieving this economic growth? For example, in what regards to tools and stuff, plan obsolescence, we design items that by default they have to break down so that we can sell more. So we can understand that there is something really broken in the system. Let's not talk. So there's just two data about how much a drill is used. One data says that it's used 12 minutes over its life cycle. This means choosing to buy a drill, discussing with eventually your partner, driving to a store, having a big conversation about which drill, waiting for that discount to come in, picking up, going, buying it, putting it back in the car, back home, using it 12 minutes over its life cycle. And there it says. Another study says that a drill is used just 3 hours out of potentially 20 hours per year. No matter which one we go with, there are a lot of things unused, underutilized in our houses. And this is really important to distinguish from waste, because we always think about waste as a post-consumption thing, composting, broken e-waste and things. I want to attract today your attention on, the part before that actually becomes waste, so underutilized goods. So from a macro level perspective, I'm really alienated with the intellectual current of economic degrowth. For the most politically correct within you, this is called post-growth, the croissance in French, that came actually from France. I will speak more about those two layers at the top, and you can't see, but the micro level is just our individual choices and what we do every day. So I don't know why my slides are like that, but anyway, so what is economic degrowth? Basically, I can send around the slides. I don't know what. Basically, is downscaling the economy. And when I say downscaling the economy, it means downscaling the metabolism of our economy. Samuel Alexander, which is an intellectual, a great intellectual from Melbourne, says, well, we need a planned contraction of the energy and resource demands of overgrown economies. And this is really important because when I talk about post-growth degrowth, I talk about global north. I talk about our countries to avoid any imperialistic economic choices on global south countries. So we have to decrease our metabolism in order to allow human flourishing beyond productivism and consumerism. So what do we do in our micro, at our micro level at the Brisbane Tool Library? Well, we want to reduce, as I said, not waste, but consumption. And obviously waste is part of the narrative. We want to create jobs for people of low socioeconomic background or excluded groups. We want to move toward a real sharing and circular economy that could lead and build up to a post-growth, degrowth future. So practically, how are we doing it? So I started the Brisbane Tool Library in 2017. The beginning was just me and my partner forced to drive with me around Brisbane. We just used to pick up stuff around. This is basically one of the first pickups we had, from food dehydrators to roller skaters to tools. Then we became obviously more structured. This is the pickup. So now we go and pick the items, especially power tools, from the Brisbane recovery centers. Brisbane has 4 recovery centers. Every 2-3 weeks we go and pick it up. This is the pickup of November 2018 of one afternoon. So you can't really see in the picture, but this is waste. This is what waste is in our society. We have more than 1,500, 2,000 items, and they were all considered waste. They already arrived in a recovery center with boxes, instruction, and some brand new. Obviously, we pick them up in different ways. That picture of me done there shocked is because we also partner with removal companies. Big removal companies get calls from customers. They have to empty hotels, restaurants, other projects, pick up everything, go to landfill, next customer. So in that next customer, everything gets lost in landfill. So I went with them, followed their pattern, and I went with a removal company that was emptying op shops. This is where we got to. Op shops are calling removal companies. So some of these companies that we partner with, they started keeping, some valuable things for us at the beginning, and that's how also we collected things. Everything comes at the tool library. We clean it, we test and tag it, and then the process is to put it in the inventory. These photos are a bit old and some updated. So when we put in the inventory, it means taking a picture of an item that is functioning, it has all the parts, it has a description, it's working clean, and we write all that description in the software, and a number would go with it. This is how we work today. We are open. We have limited resources and therefore limited hours as well, but we've been open now for almost 2 years, 3 days a week and every second Saturday. We are still all volunteer run. We have 60 plus volunteers, and obviously to achieve one of our goals, which was creating employment, we still have a lot to do. But it took us a lot of time to, work out the procedure, the safety around it. And obviously you can imagine when I went to speak to council, government and other authorities saying, we're going to go to landfill, take power tools and put them back in the economy. They said, why don't you do it without power tools? Which you would lose, yes, which you would lose all the value, So this is just some of, it was a screenshot of our event a while ago. So we have Christmas decoration, kayaks, and all those things that we don't really need to stop. We got in a society where we consume so much that if you Google, you can find Airbnb for stuff. People are renting places, space, stuff. So, why do we need to stop Christmas decoration 11 months per year? We also, all our space, if you ever come up to Brisbane and visit us, all our space has been built with rescued land shelves and stuff from landfill or old warehouses. So every part that we have, we try to upcycle it. And since 2018, finally gained some trust from someone, and we're based at the official state library of Queensland. So For me, that was really an important step, obviously beyond the support of the State Library and the free rent. But it was for me a way to reclaim back the circular economy movement in the public spaces, to reclaim back the circular economy movement in the community space, because I feel, well, there's a lot of greenwashing and everything, but circular economy is being used more at the industrial level. What can we compost? Food from, compost to energy, it's all very industrial, and we are losing that traction to include the community in that circular economy. Plus, libraries in general have been a successful business model around the world, different countries for centuries. So I think we need to reactivate those spaces. They can be public or not, but just reactivate hubs, because we are also experiencing more and more gentrification, and everything is going digital, peer-to-peer and others. So I really think that recreating community in almost dead neoliberal individualized cities is really important. So one of the values that we bring is we give access over ownership. And this is probably easier to understand if you look at the movie industry. We want to access a movie, we don't want to buy a DVD or anything anymore. So I think that dematerializing the economy is really important, and that's what we are trying to do. Is like we can see it in our trends and their qualitative data that a lot of baby boomers, or like even older people, would donate the things, and the youngest generation would actually borrow. They have an understanding of ownership which is different. Well, this is just some of the things people did with our things, building stuff, obviously, renovating houses, going camping, festival and things. We started, I'm really bad at slides, but this is not my design. Okay, so we also started organizing workshops, like bike repairing workshop, introduction to power tools, beeswax making. And the important thing of the workshop, well, first of all, is to give a first access to items for especially people like me that are completely unskilled with tools. For us, all the workshops that we design, they're also based on the fact that those are transferable skills. So, we think that person can then is able to teach someone else in their own community. And well, I think the workshop part of it, I studied the Tool Library, and I'm literally the less skilled person, to not say non-skilled. And I think that came from this alienation of consumerism, because I grew up thinking that everything, we can buy everything, and if it breaks, you just buy something else. So we realized that if we had this amazing stock of specialized items, etc., but not the skill to use them, well, there was a bridge there that we had to fill up. So that's why we organize workshops. Obviously, there's also self-confidence. We still live in a very patriarchal society, and Australia has a culture of men shed, but women, a lot of media came to me and said, oh, why so many women? Why not? Just because we've been excluded from everything doesn't mean we wanted to be excluded. So this is a little bit our model. So we have a circular economy going on if we want to run the Tool Library, maximizing the use phase of all the items, but we have a macro circular economy aspect. So we are partnering with City Council, Cleanaway, which is a waste management company, taking all these items from them. We maximize the use of them, obviously in partnership with the State Library, where we are hosted. And then we give away stuff that we don't need. For example, we had too many sleeping bags. We thought that it was too much labor intensive to wash them and keep care of them. So we decided not to have sleeping bags anymore. We still have all the other camping gear. So we gave that to organizations that work with homeless people and stuff. So we really try to maximize and divert. When our tools break down or we have problems in Australia, test and tagging and repairing the law is really strict. We can't repair items if we are not electrician. So we are also working on changing eventually that law around. But instead of sending back our items to landfill, we send them to Substation 33, which is another social enterprise in Logan. And they open the e-waste and recreate and maximize all the spare parts into innovation and other things. So we are really trying to reduce along all the chain. I would say that the main benefits, and that's probably a long summary, is, well, people save space at home. They don't need to stock everything. They save money. At the moment, membership are $75 per year. People can check out 4 items per week and they can renew it. So 4 items up to 2 weeks and $60 concession. We might have to change that to strengthen the business model, but anyway, for the price of one tool, people can really access thousands of them. And then obviously we're reducing the ecological footprint. And a lot of our people, to be honest, when we started, and I started out of West End, which is it used to be a bit more the progressive part of Brisbane, I thought, oh, all these green are going to jump on board and do it. Actually, we didn't have that, but we touch in a completely different segment. So we have one location and we are trying to find a second one, but we are serving 45 different suburbs. And that was back in June when we analyzed the data. And we are touching on people that never even heard the word circular economy. This model just makes sense to them. And that's where I think systemic change should come in, instead of saying it, is demonstrating it. And I'm doing a PhD myself, so I know that, that difficult between academia and saying and thinking and then practically giving that solution. So what are the commons for us? Well, we define ourselves as a real sharing and circular economy. We're definitely not like a big company like Uber and stuff, which I don't think are a sharing economy. They're just a branch of extreme capitalism that doesn't have labor rights. We offer use rights, so people can use the things without owning them. And this is not just important from an ecological perspective, but I think if cities of the future would be designed around sharing resources, we actually can reduce inequality. Because a lot of the things that we buy, the culture we buy, they also define our status. But if we live in prosperity and everyone has access to similar things, well, inequality might be reduced. So there's some interest in there from my part. We want to move from consumerism to materialism. Richard Dennis, Australian author, wrote Curing Affluenza. So consumerism is the love of buying things, is that thrill that we have every time something arrives at home or we open it. Materialism is the love of maintaining things. And probably 2 generations ago, parents would still pass their own items, furniture and stuff to the next generation. So we lost that in the last probably 50 years. So that's why we want to recreate a healthy materialism, taking care of things. We want to dematerialize production and consumption, which is different from decoupling. So decoupling means being more energy efficient and things. But if our goal is always economic growth, well, capitalism by itself wants to achieve energy efficiency and resource efficiency because that grows capital, while dematerialization means literally absolute term cutting down on the use of resources because we live in a finite planet. And I think the most important thing for me is the commons is not about sharing things, but it's about substituting things with human relationship. And that's where commoning comes in. Everyone has been very welcoming in Brisbane. They knew that, we were experimenting, and we are still, because it's a pretty new thing for society in general. So everyone owns the project. We're not a cooperative, but they give feedback. They're flexible, and they are allowing us, to try to fail and grow together. Finally, to go back to the macro level to finish, well, economic degrowth should be based on a need-oriented production and need-based consumption. We need a change in value. We need to produce things that last and that they, or modular things. So anyway, something that is not single-use disposable. We, I think, need to shift from a product economy to a service economy. But also more from a political perspective, I think there's a city, Grenoble in France, that they tried to have advertisement-free areas. I think public transports or public buildings should not be used as, advertisement for corporation things. So there are a lot of things that could be done politically. We could introduce extraction on limits and not just taxes. We could actually integrate the real cost of things in the price, because the price and the cost is different things. And I think that we also need to explore, and Iceland, Scotland, and New Zealand are part of the well-being alliances, and their government are exploring new index to measure the well-being, social and ecological well-being of a nation. We really like this slogan, just to finish up with. You don't really need a drill. What you need in reality is just a hole in the wall. And well, if you're interested in reading more about degrowth, and this is my contact. Thank you.